And jiu-jitsu is not power. It's technique. It's precision. It's, it's sophistication. Yeah, power has to do with it as well, but that is not number one. If you could pick only one attribute, that should not be the number one.
Welcome to Forever White Belt. I'm your host, Adolfo Fronda. Today on the show, we have a legendary figure in the world of BJJ, none other than 4th degree black belt, Karel the Silver Fox Pravec. In addition to my home instructors, Karel has been one of the most important figures in my personal development of my jiu-jitsu game. He's not just a coach, he's a mentor and a friend who's helped guide me and many others around the world with his wisdom and strategies that make up this amazing art. But that's not all. Karel played a pivotal role in getting this very podcast off the ground. He took a chance on a relatively unknown host, agreeing to be my first guest in 2020. Karel's journey through martial arts is nothing short of awe-inspiring. In 1993, when Jiu-Jitsu finally made its way to the New Jersey, New York area, Karel Pravec embraced it with open arms. He became one of Renzo Gracie's first American students and dedicated his spare moments to mastering the gentle art. In 2006, after years of relentless practice, he proudly received his black belt from Renzo Gracie. In addition to his academies, Karel's expertise extends far beyond his own mats. He's become a sought-after instructor worldwide, constantly refining his skills and knowledge to benefit his students. He shared his wisdom through his Fluid BJJ book and Jiu-Jitsu video series. He's been featured on the TriStar Gym YouTube channel alongside esteemed MMA coach Faraz Sahabi and has several amazing offerings on BJJ Fanatics. Now you might be wondering, how did Fox earn the nickname Silver Fox? One of his training partners at the Renzo Gracie Academy couldn't help but notice Karel's remarkable ability to outfox him on the mat, despite being more athletic, bigger, and younger. With his distinguished gray hair and his cutting prowess, his partner began to affectionately call him the Silver Fox, and the name simply stuck. In this episode, we delve into leadership development in Jiu-Jitsu, explore Karel's upcoming Jiu-Jitsu app, uncover the secrets of using the pool for BJJ training, and discover how to be the ultimate training partner. And with that, I give you Karel the Silver Fox Pravec. Fox, welcome to the show, man.
How you doing? Good to see you, Adolfo.
Well, I should say welcome back.
I appreciate it. Yeah,
it's been too long. I believe you were episode number 1. First of all, I got to say thank you for being on the show, number 1. You were an important part of the show and my personal journey as well.
I appreciate it. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Really means the world. I brought this up last time, people. If you want, go back and watch Fox's episode. During the lockdowns, Fox was having an online show, which he still has, Roll with the Fox. But for a lot of us who couldn't train for a bit, his show was instrumental in a lot of people's growth. I know a lot of my style now comes from you, Fox. It's crazy. You've really created a global tribe. What's that been like? I mean, it's continued to grow.
Yeah, it's continued to grow and evolve. A lot of people have been reaching out to me over the years, like asking questions about, a variety of things, training strategies, specific technical questions. And I remember I was driving with a friend of mine on a highway in Germany, and I was talking to a guy in India, and he was asking me a technical questions. And I'm trying to explain things to him, and every once in a while the call got dropped. And I was, all right, we got to do something different. So we started doing this online live troubleshooting where I'm on the mats, and basically people have a chance to ask live if they subscribe to YouTube questions, technical questions, training questions, tournament questions, training strategies, and basically anything about jiu-jitsu. And we started doing it once a month. It's kind of an oddball time. I picked a time that I thought would work on a global basis, meaning that it's never completely like 4:00 a.m. anywhere when we do it. It's 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, so 7:30 West Coast time, which a lot of people on the West Coast time are already up at that time. During COVID, we didn't know what to do, and basically we decided to do it on a daily basis until we get unlocked. We wind up doing 99 episodes. Since then, we've gone to once a week. So we continued the show, but we've done it once a week. And now it's in the next step of the evolution. I'm actually working on this, and you've had some involvement in this as well, is an app that's going to be available. Eventually it's going to be in everything, but Apple is going to be first. So it's going to be an instructional app. And I think the 3 main points that we stand on is, so first of all, the organization is going to be, the the way we organize things is not just by position, but also by submission, both defensively as well as defensively. So you basically can formulate whatever techniques you're working on, and you can sort of customize in a way that allows you to work on those techniques specifically. And obviously you can change that over time as your game evolves. We will retain the live feature. So we will still do live on YouTube, but we will have a more involved live approach with the app. So you will still, if you're a subscriber, you still will have a chance to ask live questions. Hey, Fox, I saw this technique. You showed it to me. I saw it at a camp, at a seminar, or online. And can you help me with this? And then the third one is obviously sort of my style of game, which tends to be pretty aggressive, submission-oriented style. I think between those three features, we have pretty loyal following, and you know very well from the YouTube that a lot of people have been following us for years and regular participants.
You have such a dearth of information and content out there, and jiu-jitsu is such a vast thing. Putting together this app, how did you even corral all the cats? There's just so much to it. It's different to teach students in class versus doing the online thing or this app thing.
The funny thing is the teaching part is easy for me in a sense, because I truly view, when I'm looking at that camera on YouTube or on the app, I truly view the people, and I enjoy that interaction. You said we created a tribe, which we did. We literally have an audience on all continents except for Antarctica. And I look at those people as quasi my students, because if somebody becomes a long-term viewer, they will pick up a lot of things from this source, and their game will evolve to resemble at least partially a lot of the things I do, just like my students would. When I'm teaching, I kind of view that it's pretty easy for me to kind of make that interaction, make that connection with the people, even though it's online. The hard part was the organization. We have so many videos, and it's easy, like people have to do the search and so forth, but to try to organize it in a way that makes sense to people, that it becomes more of anybody can customize what is offered that is suitable for their game. That was the difficult part.
You got to think of everyone, because everyone's coming from all different stages of jiu-jitsu, whether it's the beginner, the mid belt person, or the black belt, and everything in between. So they're all searching for various different things. One person could be typing in triangle, let's say a beginner, versus someone who's looking for defense or late stage escapes. That's a lot to wrangle, man.
Yeah, exactly. Let's throw in a few more complications, because if you look at a triangle is fairly simple. Everybody that trains jiu-jitsu for a month knows what a triangle is. Maybe they can't do it well, but I try to break things up into sort of more understandable pieces. You have regular triangle, you have inverted triangles, you have reverse triangles, you have what I call ugly triangles, you have teepees, so it becomes so many possible things. Again, the organization literally took me 3 or 4 weeks to come up with a skeleton, or sort of at least a basic outline of how we organize this. And then we had to get guys to help us classify things based on that organization. So I hope you guys like it.
The way you develop students. It's interesting having talked to Mike Gemarillo and yourself. I see that you guys you're in this stage, or maybe, I don't know when they began, but you really are developing people, holistically. It seems like a 360 degrees type of development. When did that happen? Did you come out the gate like that, or?
No, not at all. Mike Jaramillo is actually one of my closest friends, very good black belt, one of the main instructors at the Renzo Academy now. And, he and I traveled quite a bit, competed together back in the, 2010 timeframe, and I think we look at the role of jiu-jitsu not just as a sport. I really don't want it to be a sport. I don't want it to go in the Olympics. I actually do enjoy the fact that there's so many rule sets around the world, and that people constantly try to develop a new one that's going to make it more exciting. At the end of the day, I don't think it's the rule set that makes it exciting. I think it's the people that make it exciting, the competitors. As an art, it gives you a chance to really put your personal imprint on it, versus a sport, which becomes much more, okay, this is the rules and everybody's going to try, and I think it becomes very limiting. Like I think judo has gone down that path quite a bit. Of course, any sport will develop your character, but I think jiu-jitsu allows us to, look at it as an art. This is my sort of interpretation of this art. This is what I want to do with it. I want people to have an amazing technical jiu-jitsu, obviously be able to defend themselves, but more importantly, actually be able to deal with people that are bigger than them, first protect themselves and then get a submission. Look at it as a martial art, as a self-defense system. That's sort of how I look at it. But I think, I started to look at, I got talked into teaching, when I got my black belt. This is back in the day when purple belts could walk on water. I kind of got talked into it, and I just, basically I just viewed it as an instructor. That's it, coach. Now I look at my role much broader. Is actually I've had the privilege I was going to call it pleasure, but it's not always
Not always
pleasure
pleasurable.
of helping guys that maybe, really smart or hardworking guys. Maybe they would have never had a chance to become the best versions of themselves they could be. And through jiu-jitsu and going through the apprenticeship program in the academy is become school owners and, quite successful at that. And now they're the ones, now they're breeding the next generation, helping them grow and helping people. I like to think that our job is to help people achieve their goals. They may come in for jiu-jitsu, but hopefully they will eventually get a lot more out of that.
Yeah, they seem to, having witnessed and attached myself to your online presence for so many years, like the leech I am.
I would call that a good student.
Having witnessed a lot of your high level black belts, ones you've developed, and your lower belts that you're allowing them to explore different things, like whether it's like on the show, camera work, whatever, production work, learn things like that. But I'm fascinated also by your black belts, some of which, that I've been privy to that have opened other academies, as you said, a couple in Florida. And you mentioned this apprenticeship program. Can you go a little more into that? And what is your advice to other senior black belts out there that are looking to finally start developing other black belts?
Yeah, so it's not a formal apprenticeship program, but basically once somebody expresses a desire to teach and kind of look at jiu-jitsu in a broader sense, not just come in, train, and go home, which is fine. Bulk of my students are doing that, but, it becomes a hobby, it becomes a release, stress relief. It becomes a skill acquisition quest and so forth. Some of them may compete, but some of them eventually like, hey, Fox, I'd like to teach. So what I usually do is just sort of put them, especially if they're sort of at blue or purple, we tend to have, for the adult classes, we try to have a black belt teaching all classes. And if there's somebody traveling, hurt or temporarily, but I usually try to have a black belt teach the adult classes, possibly a brown belt. But as far as the kids classes, they start to help out. So there may be a senior instructor, maybe a black belt, maybe a brown belt, and maybe as a blue belt, they help with the kids. We have an in-house training also modules that we do maybe twice a year on how to teach a good class for adults, how to be a good instructor for kids, how to understand the business aspects of running an academy, because a lot of people don't have any understanding of the effort and things you have to do as an academy owner besides just teaching. Promptness, reliability is one of the biggest issues. And then if they do a good job, they want to have more, we try to give them additional responsibilities, more hours, and eventually they will become, so I've had multiple people be full-time employees of the academy and eventually going off on their own. We've also sort of beefed up the ranks of the female instructors, within the school, which is good because, participation of females in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is relatively low compared to other martial arts, other sports, other activities. But I think people can help out on a part-time basis and eventually evolve into full-time employees or academy owners. And hopefully by the time they pull the trigger, they've had the education, not just on the mats, but also off the mats on all the aspects of running the academy.
Some questions that people have had. Partners who are avoiding you. Some people call it ducking someone else, right? And you're that person, you don't understand why that person's ducking you. How should I approach that? Should I let them tap me?
No, this is a difficult question. So my philosophy, and guys, understand, you have no idea what that person has. So everything that I'm going to say is based on that. Now imagine the person may have autoimmune disease where they're very fragile. They might have psychological issues. You don't know. And it's not their responsibility to explain to you what is going through their life. If you're in a good size academy, this should not be an issue. Somebody doesn't want to train with them, let them be. Every person in jiu-jitsu should have the right to say, I don't want to train with him. And that's it. The point is, again, you don't know. And if they want to explain it to you, they will. If they don't want to explain it to you, let them be. Let them train with whoever they want. If you're in an academy that's a decent size, what I mean by that, probably around 200 students, that's a decent size academy. You will have enough training partners that you don't have to worry about it. But what do you care that somebody doesn't want to train with you? Why do you need to train with them? Maybe they don't enjoy it. Maybe you accidentally hurt them. Maybe you're a bad training partner. Maybe they're a little wacky. Let them be. Why would you need to be training with this person? Why is it so important?
What if you want to be like, you feel like I want to be polite. I want to ask everyone to roll with me. And then you pick up on someone who's hesitating.
That's not polite. People think that's polite. No, it's not. You don't know. So listen, I train 7 days a week, right? I'm always in my academy. There are days that I'm in pain. a lot of pain. I want to train with people I want to train with. I don't want to train. If you insist, I will do it, but you're not going to enjoy it. And I've had that happen. Probably it's even more intimate training with somebody than having a meal. Like, I want to have lunch with you. Why can't we have lunch together? Why don't you let me take you to lunch? So this is one of those things that I believe that's the, place I grew up. It's just, you don't say no. And generally speaking, if I'm on the mats and I'm training, if I'm teaching, no. But generally speaking, you don't, you basically train with everybody, but also understand that in today's age where the guy that's teaching, do you understand he's there 7 days? If that injury that he's nursing goes over the edge, guess what? He may not be able to teach for the next 3 weeks. If you get banged up, you're a hobbyist, you get banged up, you don't feel like it, you don't have to show up for the next 3 weeks. Hopefully somebody will call you, say, hey, everything okay? But if you're not there for 3 days, nobody cares. So the point is, I think this is like actually one of those things that kind of there's this, and I want to say democratic aspect of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that anybody should be able to train with anybody. No, I believe it's quite contrary. I think it's people should be just, hey, like read the body language. If you want to train with somebody, you give them a look. If they look down or look away, they don't want to train with you. Just let them be. Move on to the next guy that wants to train with you. I think it's been almost exaggerated to where like I have a right to train with anybody. No, you don't. There's a pretty big percentage of practitioners out there that have this feeling. I have a right to train with anybody. No, you don't. It's a mutual consent. Maybe you're a bad training partner. Maybe you're a bad person. Maybe they don't like you. Maybe you smell. There could be a zillion of reasons. Or maybe you're the greatest guy in the world. You smell great and you're the best training partner, but maybe they're wacky. So why would you force them? Jiu-Jitsu is uncomfortable to begin with. Why would you force them to go into that extra? Let them evolve. Maybe eventually they will want to train with you.
Maybe you got 50 pounds on them.
Generally speaking, I put people with somebody, but if they don't want to train with them, I'm like, okay. Then I try to find out what is the reason. If there's a good reason for it, then obviously I need to step in. I need to talk to people. But if there's no, if there's just sort of miscommunications, it's just normal human nature. People gravitate towards other people that they want to be with.
Just a reminder to please give us a 5-star review on Apple Music and Spotify and become a VIP member for only 99 cents a month. Get ad-free episodes at anchor.fm/foreverwhitebelt/subscribe. And check us out on Instagram at Forever White Belt Show. Go buy your Forever White Belt swag at teespring.com/forever-white-belt. Check us out on YouTube now at Forever White Belt. Finally, if you ever get to beautiful Northern California, please come roll with us at North Bay Jiu-Jitsu in Marin County, just north of San Francisco. They're amazing instructors and everyone there are great people. Mention the podcast and get 2 weeks free. Another question we had is, Fox, how can I develop my late stage defense? That's a tough one because that puts you in deep positions. Typically, I see upper belts trying to work on this kind of stuff. With lower belts, you might get injured because you're so late. Everyone's looking at Gary Tonin as the extreme example of this, right? How do I develop my late stage defense?
That's really tough. I think good training partners is probably one of the most important things. I've trained at the Renzo Gracie Academy in the Blue Basement for decades. And sometimes people would come in and again, they want to train with Gary and they would just not understand that, listen, Gary's been here every single day for the last 2 months, training 3-4 hours a day. He's beat up and you're trying to show people how good you are. Again, it's not a good training partner, but good training partners can help you develop that late stage defense. So there's a couple of different ways you can do this. One of the things, obviously, if you slow down your roll, it's a good way because then things don't happen as quickly. So you can kind of figure out the micro angles and direction. Sometimes you go the wrong way and it's like, oh crap. Obviously if the guy's cranking that arm bar, it's you don't want to go the wrong direction. So there's certain people you can't do that with. That's one. So again, good training partners, slowing things down. Third one is, this is a very difficult aspect, isn't it? That's a function of experience, is to understand as it's happening where you need to go. So a lot of people tend to use defense sequentially. So, like on our YouTube channel, what I teach is like, okay, here's early stage defense. Here's mid stage defense. Here's late stage defense. That doesn't mean that you go through those stages sequentially, because by the time you get to that mid or late stage, it's too late for the first one. You're wasting split seconds, and that's a lot of time on early stages. It's gone. So you need to actually also develop the understanding, the feeling that the early stage or mid stage defense has passed and you go directly into late stage defense rather than wasting time in those sequences. So that's also very important. That's generally speaking experience, obviously, but also those first two, meaning slowing things down, and good training partners help you determine that, because you get to read the situation, let's call it, read the situation quickly. And that enables you, again, to skip 1 and 2 and go straight into 3.
Yeah, when everyone always thinks of like the armbar example from bottom or something, when someone, you're in that position and when can I hitchhike or when I can't.
I'm a big fan of flow rolling, and some people poo-poo that idea, but the reality is that's where you develop like really good sensitivities to sort of some very, very good subtleties. A lot of times, I like Udagatame is one of my big weapons. I don't call it choi bar because the way people do it, I've actually used to do that, 5-10 years ago, kind of weave the leg through. I found that high level guys tend to escape it and generally wind up on top if I use it. I use different things, but I call it udagatame, razor armbar, upside down armbar, whatever you want to call it. It's one of my really, really important weapons. But what I've done is, like, when I catch people, I could literally just rip it and it's done. But I choose to kind of hold it and almost give them a little bit of slack to see where they're going with it. So I use the same kind of approach on the offensive side. So you could use the same approach on the defensive side, meaning, if you have a good training partner to slow things down, you get it to a point is like, that you could shut it down very quickly, but you let the person move on into the next stage, almost give them like enough slack that where both defensively, this works very well, both defensively as well as offensively, where they're going to go with it and how you can shut it down at the next step or the step after. And that helps you evolve your game.
And then obviously if it goes too far, you just tap, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool with that.
Yeah. Especially with joint locks, guys, when things get like really heated and fast, and I usually try to have at least one of my hands on them as opposed to on the floor. I don't like tapping with my foot. Think about it. People raise their leg and bring it down. By the time you hit the mat, it's that split second. That could be major damage. Same thing, like sometimes people just kind of tickle the mat pretty far away. Some schools have fans and music going. Sometimes you can't hear it. There's 50 people on the mats. You can't hear it. So I'm a fan, especially when you're playing with joint locks, get the free hand on them. And verbal is probably, but don't be like, tap. Wait, what would you say? No, make it count.
Your thoughts on letting others tap you. Now, there could be a variety of context here, but I want to get your general ideas on that.
Well, a lot of times, if I go with training partners I trust, I let them go. I can go pretty far into it. So I basically, if I have people I trust, I can let them go, let's see how can I escape this at the very late stage. And if I can, great. I try to pay attention. Can I recreate this pattern? Can I recreate this pattern? Good. And then it's good defense. Now, but sometimes you're wrong. It's either maybe you just did not move in time, or maybe that pattern is not, it's not the one that you should be following. So when that happens, you got to tap. Otherwise you risk damage.
How about like you're working with a white belt, and you want them to sort of feel what an armbar is like?
That is like one of the things. You got to be careful. Like, people, again, this goes back to like, I have a right. No, the point is, some people just don't have the subtlety of knowing how far it is, or you let them do it. They get so excited. They like rip it. So a lot of times, and especially if you're a big, strong person, it becomes, depends what pace they set. And a lot of times you don't know what that pace is going to be. And then next thing, oh, I got something, crack. So you got to be really careful with that. I think training with white and blue belts is useful because you get to kind of experience sort of almost a reaction that maybe somebody who does not practice jiu-jitsu, how they would react. However, you got to be really careful, especially with bigger, stronger, athletic guys, because it's not malice, but also understand, like, they don't have the years and decades of training to understand they can cause damage, or how you slow down, understanding that, hey, this guy's taking it easy on me. I need to reciprocate. They think that they somehow got to this position themselves. Sometimes they did. Sometimes they just do something unexpected, and like suddenly, like, you cut a training because you're thinking like, okay, I'm playing with them. because you're not mentally ready to tap. I tell people the same thing. We have like some students, they travel heavily, like, some, professionals, people work 70 hours a week. They're tired. If you're mentally tired, you may get caught in submission, but by the time you realize that mentally to actually initiate the tap, it might be too late. That's where training partners and selection becomes very important. Again, you're 23 years old. You live in mommy's basement. She does your laundry. She does your cooking and everything. And basically you go to school part-time and the rest is spelled, jiu-jitsu, skateboarding, and whatever conditioning. You get to sleep in whenever you feel like it. You have no responsibilities. You're going to be always good. You're going to be fresh. I tell my students, there's certain laws of physics. It's not just physics. It's, that jiu-jitsu cannot overcome. And you need to be careful. Again, you go with some relatively new person and the person is exhausted from, a new parent. I have one of my students, his wife had a baby a few months ago. I'm pretty sure he's about getting 2 hours of sleep a night. He's good, but do you think he's going to be good like you are good? And suddenly you see something, you decide to pull it while the guy's half fallen asleep during the roll and doesn't have a chance to tap in time to protect himself. So there's two ways. It's either you got to be cognizant of that, which is very difficult for relatively inexperienced practitioners, or the guy can say no.
Jiu-Jitsu trends. As of this recording, what's in the air in the zeitgeist of Jiu-Jitsu right now is the whole wrestle up movement. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I like it. One of the things that's very frustrating to me is in some competitions is, people either have lack of experience or have more rudimentary game than the other guy, and takedown becomes everything. And, that's great. But if you got a 10-minute match and, you spend 8.5 minutes of it trying to get a takedown, first of all, nobody wants to watch it. So it's one of two things. It's either the two guys don't have good takedowns, or they might have very good takedowns, but evenly matched. It's a really good way to potentially get things engaged. And I'm a big fan of engagement. I will try to take you down, but if I can't, I'm going to pull guard. Let's get going. If you start to back away, I will wrestle up. Think about the mentality. When two guys are standing, the mentality is, I'm going to stop your takedown and I'm going to take you down. Both of them, exactly the same one. Now, once one is on the ground and the other one is standing, the standing guy's general mentality is, I need to, of course you could have a flying armbar, but generally speaking, the mentality is, I need to pass his guard. The bottom guy is like, okay, I need to get a sweep usually, or submission. Well, wrestle up, it just adds one more element. If I pull guard or you take me down and you start to back away, I will try to tie you up. I will try to get grips in a way to make a submission or get a sweep. But if you back it away, I will come up. And a lot of times that's going to be a lot quicker than if we stand around for whatever round time you pick, trying to take each other down.
Jiu-Jitsu dogma in terms of like what's working in the gi that doesn't work in no gi, what's working in no gi that doesn't work in the gi.
Obviously the lapel game, the squid guard and worm guard and, all the chokes using the lapels. I actually am a big fan of both, but not so much for the variety of submission techniques with the gi. I like the rhythm of the games different. That's why really, because the rhythm, that becomes a skill that you need to have, regardless whichever gi or no gi you decide to pursue. So with the gi, I get a lot of triangles, back takes, into sort of the ugly triangles, a lot of sort of modified Americanas. What I do with no gi that I get a lot of, that I probably get a lot less with the gi is sort of the guillotine chokes. Lately, I'm working on a sort of one-handed guillotine and sort of the head control. And I find the grip's a little bit different, but if you saw me training in the gi and no gi, if you overlap those, like if you could switch one gear for the other, you would not see a materially different game. Again, I'm a big fan of the gi more for the rhythm than for the grips.
Yeah, I've heard you mention this notion of a universal game, which I often parrot that as well to people. Universal grip.
I do a lot of knee bars with the gi, and basically when the guy bends his leg on a knee bar, it's either ankle lock or heel hook. So in my school, we don't do heel hooks with the gi. But so I have that with no gi. So basically in the gi, if I attack the knee and the guy bends his leg, I usually wind up going into either estima or ankle lock, straight ankle lock. In no gi, it's a lot easier to transition from a failed knee bar into a heel hook.
Your thoughts on closed guard no gi? Because I know some pros are not, they kind of poo-poo it.
It's very difficult because what are you going to do? Like, there's not a whole lot you could do with no-gi. And I think, if you look at Nicholas Marigali or guys like that, they're very exciting even in the gi. It's not gi versus no-gi. It's the players. It's the practitioners. It's the guys that decide, I'm going out there, I'm going to finish. I'm going to take risks. And a lot of times these guys have a more sophisticated game, more technical game, and are able to catch people. But, I think a lot of the guys, the more they train with Nogi, you got to open things up because you don't have the cross collar grip. You don't have sort of like, let me grab you with these iron grips and you cannot move. You need to open things up and make things happen as opposed to just like, okay, I'm going to hold you. I'm going to make things so difficult for you that you're going to either stumble or you're going to do something stupid and I'm going to catch you with it, which a lot of times at the high levels doesn't happen. That's why you have such tight margin of victory, whereas Nogi people have to open things up. You could see it's very dynamic, and I think you could translate that into the gi as well. Again, I advocate for guys that primarily train in the gi to do Nogi as well. Again, it's a different pace, different rhythm. It teaches you to open up your game and still kind of go after the guy without compromising your position or scoring.
That's so interesting because I started heavily influenced by you of just instead of primarily focused, everyone typically starts closed guard, but I was really emphasized by watching you a lot is playing the feet on the hips a lot in the split guard initially from the get-go, and having transitioned to no-gi, boy, has that been a big help. You know what I mean? Holy hell. And what's amazing too is I meet other sort of masters, 5 guys, and who love no-gi now. It's this sort of thing that I've fallen in love with, and everyone's like, gi is like an older person's game, and I don't know that that's the case.
I think it's basically people have certain preferences, and then they try to justify those preferences. I personally like no-gi probably better just because it's faster, but I make it a point to train gi pretty much every time I train no-gi. So basically when I train, I try to do half and half because it is that important. I've spent it probably going back 15, maybe more years. I spent about a year of only doing no-gi and pretty much maybe once, and going back to the gi from no-gi. I don't want to go through that again.
But one thing you do realize is, geez, what a force multiplier the gi is. When you come back to the gi from no-gi, you're like, wow, man, these controls are insane. I can really throw people around.
I really believe that it enhances each other. And I think, like look at Marigali. I think he's a great example of how that could enhance. I think Gordon looks like he's training with Marigali, maybe some gi, maybe just to be a good teammate, good training partner. But I really believe that your skin won't burn if you put on the gi. How do you wear that belt that you've been given if you never put on the gi?
Yeah. So Fox, before the show, we were talking about a little bit about recovery kind of stuff. And for those of us that are feeling pretty banged up, what's your process? You talk about your wrists and all this stuff. I mean, you've been in this game long and you're at the academy all the time. You've got miles on you, as some of us do, and we're in some pain. What are you doing for recovery?
I basically do the water training. If you train often enough, and we say often enough, it means 4 to 5 days. By the way, I'd recommend that. Once you've been training for a while, you got to start training. 2 to 3 times a week is not enough. That's just, like if you're really serious about jiu-jitsu, you really want to be good, you got to train. The problem, what happens is 2 to 3 weeks is exactly like, when you go to the gym and you lift, right? You break down a muscle fiber. You need a day for the muscle fiber to recover, and that's how you build size and muscle and so forth. Know enough about this to be dangerous. What happens is when you use jiu-jitsu for such, what do you think your game is going to be? Is it going to be technical? No, you're going to be, like power. And jiu-jitsu is not power. It's technique. It's precision. It's sophistication. Yeah, power has to do with it as well, but that is not number one. If you could pick only one attribute, that should not be the number one. So I think once you go past that 2 to 3 times a week, which basically allows your body to recover, and then you could go back like a meathead, go crazy and feel like shit for the next 2 days. And then you recover and suddenly you become back to normal and then you do it again. I don't believe that is the best way to grow your skill over a long time. Now, once you cross that into 4 to 5 times or more a week, you basically now perpetually banged up. So now you have to approach your training in a different way, because if you try to train 5 days a week, or 6 days a week, like full power, you're going to be like, you just try to survive. You'll be just laying under somebody and just trying to survive, not actually trained to get better. So you need to make adjustments to basically, I'm a fan of sort of almost like a weekly regimen. I have a weekly regimen. Basically, certain days tend to be hard, certain days are medium, certain days are easy. So days that I don't, there's like Wednesdays is one of those days. I basically don't teach, I don't train. I basically just train in the water. Basically what I do solo water drills for BJJ. I do not swim. If you go to put Fluid BJJ, Silver Fox, or you put Karel Pravec, KarelPravec, water drills, 2 videos will pop up. So they will both give you a pretty good idea what I'm doing in the water. But basically, that is what is keeping me from the wheels coming off, I think.
You've been swearing by this for years and years. It's amazing. You haven't changed your tune at all.
It's an oddball thing, but it is, I believe that is probably the thing that is the single-handedly most responsible for my continued advancement in jiu-jitsu without breaking down altogether. You know, the water gives you buoyancy, so it reduces the load on my lower back. I've had perpetually bad back since I was a kid. Obviously, jiu-jitsu doesn't always help it. Basically, so it reduces the pressure of gravity on the lower spine. It's good for people that have knee injuries, that have hip injuries. Basically, also the water slows you down, so basically you have water resistance, but you also, instead of trying to go through the technique with a 250-pound guy laying on top of you trying to resist you, you actually go through it solo. So you actually wind up visualizing your opponent's reaction, which visualization is an extremely important tool in all sports and arts, even fine arts. When you visualize things, you kind of try to come up with a response. And then you, as you're doing it solo, you don't pay attention to the other guy. You pay attention to yourself and you start to realize, oh man, I'm not tucking my leg the way I should, or I thought I was. I need to tuck in the leg. And then, it becomes fun. It's good to do. Like when you travel, it's easy. You could, whatever site you use and you book a hotel, it's, you just click, have a pool, and there you go. Now you can do it when you're traveling, when you're on vacation. So I personally believe it's an extremely, extremely underrated tool. For me, it's a key tool. It truly is, because literally my process so let's go through my creative process. We are, after all, practicing an art, right? We established that we don't want it to be a sport. I'm training with one of my guys, and after 6 months of me hitting them with something that was really, really effective, it starts to not work. It starts to get countered. And so I think about it in the pool. Maybe I have an idea. I play around with it. I try to do it to him. It's not quite right. But something in the back of my head somehow, maybe, I kind of remember, and then I do it and I just do something to him. And I was like, with Enrique, I have literally hundreds of videos on my phone of not just Enrique, but all my training. Like, hey, do you mind if let's recreate it? And then I'm like, oh, what if I do this? And now I'm like, okay, I think this works. This is good. This I need to. So then what I do is I start to play around with it in the pool. So that's how I build muscle memory. So now I have muscle memory. I focus on my own movement, not at the movement of my opponent, but my own movement, obviously trying to imagine what my opponent is doing. And then I start to hit him on them live. And then I run with it until the next thing. That's like one of the things that helps me stay at the forefront, I think, of jiu-jitsu technically.
Has your view of the evolution of where we are in jiu-jitsu now and where it's go forward, has that changed in the past couple of years? What do you see?
Yeah, I think there are a bunch of things that are going on. I think jiu-jitsu is evolving extremely fast. And I think it becomes more important for people. Used to be kind of like more like, this is jiu-jitsu. Now it's becoming, this is my approach to jiu-jitsu. So it's very important for people to trying to mimic or kind of pursue the style of jiu-jitsu that is most suitable for them. Say if your personality and bodybuild is a tractor, trying to duplicate a Ferrari's game is not going to happen. So, you really need to kind of give some thought and trying to kind of say, okay, this is where I want my evolution to be. Of course, be open to others, because sometimes you may miss something or be like, oh man, I really like this. This I think would be a good fit for my game. So that's one thing that's happening. It's just evolving so fast because what's happening, I think, between the constant availability of technique, it's free, it's paid, it's evolving fast. For me, I've done a video 7 years ago for jiu-jitsu, and I did a couple of videos for maybe 4 for Fanatics 2 years ago, and now I'm doing the app. My game is constantly evolving. My game is better than it was 2 years ago. It is not dramatically different, but it will be different. Just like a car. When you buy a car every 5 years, that model is going to be redesigned. It's going to be better, faster. That's what's happening. Also, I think as you see so much proliferation of technique online, whether it's free or paid, I think it puts almost a requirement on teachers to be good. Because if you're not a good teacher, your students are going to get that stuff somewhere else. Used to be like nobody knew, if their teacher was crap, but the guy could beat up everybody that walked in the door that day. They thought he was amazing, but he could be crap. But now, most teachers have to be good because it's not just a local standard, it's become a global standard. So that's what I'm seeing. I think people are starting to perhaps realize that let's not try to get jiu-jitsu in the Olympics so that way it becomes like okay, this is how we do it, but almost like the people are starting to play around with the rules, trying to tweak them, and let's enjoy the rules. To be honest with you, I watched that Igo, the one in Kazakhstan, and it's I couldn't quite understand the rules because I think it was a team effort. You had 3 periods and all this. However, when you see good jiu-jitsu, good submission grappling, it's fun. If it turns out that it's good, people will watch, people will adopt the good stuff and kind of leave the bad stuff behind. That's how innovation is done. So I think there's a tremendous amount of innovation.
You do seminars all over the world. You've been doing a lot in Europe. Can you talk about like your experiences with, let's say, seminars as of 2023 and go forward?
So I do a camp in Czech. I actually, so I do camps and seminars. And to be honest with you, I enjoy the camps better. What's the difference between camp and seminar? The camp usually lasts multi-days, 3 to 6 days, and a seminar is usually just one day, one night. So I personally prefer the camps because there's a lot of people that do camps around the world, and some of them, have 8 to 10 hours or 12 hours of instructional or mat time. My personal view is I usually try to put the camps in places that are kind of cool. And what I mean by that is historically people can see castles, they can see Greek theaters, Roman ruins, and things like that. I like to have a beautiful nature nearby. I like to expose people to not just jiu-jitsu, or at least my style of jiu-jitsu, but also have them see and experience things that they normally would not, were it not for jiu-jitsu. And one of the things I'm very proud of is a lot of people tell me that this was like the best week of their life. And these are people that have traveled, and some of them have never traveled. I've brought people to Sicily. If you're a reasonably well-traveled person, Italy has probably been on your list, but not Sicily. People that have never traveled come to Sicily, or they come to Czech Republic, which, we do the camp out 2 hours outside of Prague. So if somebody's going to travel, they're going to go to Prague, and you should see Prague for sure. But we do it in a small town where we go to the local guys' houses, and we wind up hang out as a group, talk, have meals together. So it's a much better bonding experience. And generally speaking, I try to teach 2 to 4 hours a day. So give you some jiu-jitsu instruction, but also more importantly, make sure we leave enough time for you to actually experience the place that you've traveled so far to experience. We look at the cuisine, the history, the culture. We, with the Sicily tour, we go to visit Mount Etna. We had a tour of winery. The hotel is on a beautiful beach. We have a tour of the Greek, which is even pre-Roman, 2,500-year-old theater that's still in use today. I view my role as a teacher a little bit more broadly, not just, okay, I'm going to teach you jiu-jitsu. Generally, the size ranges from the small ones, 30 people, and it's usually decided by the local facilities what we can have. It's not 30 in Costa Rica, and, in Holland, it's going to be 120 people. So it's going to be packed.
Well, Fox, where can we get more information about you and everything that you're up to?
Everything is under Silver Fox BJJ. SilverFoxBJJ.com. YouTube channel is Silver Fox BJJ. On Facebook, I'm under Silver Fox BJJ. I have my personal account. On Instagram, guys, I have access to it. I do post a lot, but also there's other people. So the best place to send me a message is probably Facebook, not the Academy page. The Academy page has a logo. My personal page has my picture in a blue gi. Just remember, keep in mind. So if you send me a question on the Academy page, sometimes it gets lost because there's other people that have access to it. Same thing on Instagram. On my personal page, I'm maxed out at friends, but usually people still send me messages still. So that would be probably the best place.
All right, everyone. We will add all those links in the show notes to everything that was mentioned in the show. Again, I'm your host, Adolfo Fronda. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe on Spotify, leave some comments, answer our Q&A and all that stuff. Thank you so much for watching and listening out there. Fox, thanks so much for your time, man. It was great. Let's do it again.
Sounds good. I'll see you soon.
All right. See you guys.